Well, even though it's still more than a year and a half away, I doubt anyone in North Brooklyn has forgotten about the impending shutdown of the L train. The 15-month-long repair project is bound to have massive repercussions for those living or working in the affected area. But one problem that most people probably haven't even considered is the added pollution from all the shuttle buses the city will bring in to ease the subway riders' burden.
Well, here to tell us why we should be paying attention to this issue and what can be done to limit the damaging effects and to bring us up to speed on other work he's doing, from microgrids to bedbugs, is New York City Councilmember Rafael Espinal, and welcome back to BK Live.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to start the conversation off. Yeah, excuse me, I do live off the L train.
Yes, he does.
And I do remember the days when I could get on at my stop, get a seat, no problem at all. Now, those days are long past. When is the L train scheduled to shut down? And at this point, how many commuters will that impact?
Yeah, well, the date they're looking to close the L train is about a year, again, as mentioned, about a year and a half away. And it's expected to impact thousands of commuters. You know, I think if you're familiar with the Bedford stop during rush hour, there's no way you're gonna get on that train unless you take a stop 2 or 3 before the Bedford stop. So, you know, these are thousands and thousands of Brooklynites who are gonna lose that transportation, that easiness of transportation into the city. You know, the MTA has a whole bunch of plans on how they're looking to address that issue. But I believe that if we're going to remove this electric vehicle, right? This is a very clean electric vehicle from the mass transit system. We should replace it with something at that same level, right? And that's electric buses. Yeah. You know, I think that to this day, every time the L train goes out of commission, we continue to see those propane or diesel fueled buses on the Lorimer stop, on the Bedford stop, and we have to find a new wave of transportation. And electric buses are being used across the country. You know, I think Seattle recently committed to putting over 100 buses over the next 3 years. The MTA, unfortunately, has committed to only putting 5 buses in the next 3 years across the city. And this is not going to deal, 5.
All electric.
Only electric,
yeah.
5 only electric buses. And they've tripled down on their commitment to continuing to put diesel buses onto our streets. And they're gonna purchase 200 buses to deal with the L train shutdown issue. So again, you know, this is very important for many reasons, right? I mean, we're talking about a time where climate change and you know, it's one of the largest issues that we're dealing with and facing, especially when we have a federal government that doesn't want to acknowledge that climate change is a problem. Yeah. And I think that the city on a local level and the MTA and the state should work together on finding ways to address that problem.
Well, speaking of that problem, we do have a graphic here that sort of has an outline of some of the pilot program. There's going to be, what, $4 million spent on 3-year leases for these electric buses. For the 5 buses.
And 7 charging stations. Now, this is only a pilot program as well. How long is this pilot program set to?
3 years.
3 years.
So imagine, in 3 years, we'll probably have a new president in office, and hopefully someone who's a little more environmentally friendly. Yeah. But again, you know, we're New York City. We're one of the largest cities in the country. We actually are one of the top 25 cities that has the worst air quality in this country. And you know, we're one of the richest cities in this country, so why not do our part in making sure that we are playing our role in dealing with the issues of climate change and making sure that our air quality becomes better. North Brooklyn suffers from high asthma rates. A lot of youngsters, a lot of older folks have asthma because of the air quality in Williamsburg, Bushwick, and East New York.
I have to ask, is there an estimate of how much the carbon emissions will increase with this new fleet of shuttles that will be in place of the L train? We
haven't seen the numbers, but I don't think we've seen numbers to know that it's going to have a really negative impact on our air quality. You know, again, 70% of the global CO2 output is created by cities across the world. So again, us as a city have to do our part and make sure that we're doing the right thing, not only for the environment, but for our constituency.
Well, you spoke about the health ramifications. That, of course, is huge, knowing the asthma rates in North Brooklyn outpacing other parts of the city. And this is a real rubber meets the road sort of issue. And frankly, it seems like a missed opportunity for the city to really get behind something revolutionary.
It's a big missed opportunity. I think the positive side of this is that we still have a year and a half to continue advocating and working together. I've been working with the Sierra Club, a big nationally renowned environmental group. Been working with actually filmmaker Darren Aronofsky, who's impacted by the L train shutdown.
Brooklyn guy.
Brooklyn guy, filmmaker. He's actually made the connection between the government and Sierra Club, something he's really passionate about. And I've been working with Councilman Steve Levin in Williamsburg. So we have a great, strong coalition here. What we do need is for Brooklynites to stand up and start making noise.
Who's the enemy of progress? Who's standing in the doorway of getting this thing to happen? Is it the MTA being disconnected from the city, or like since they're running it from Albany, or like who's thinking this isn't a good idea?
Well, I think it's no doubt it's the MTA who believes that it's not a good idea as of yet. I mean, the biggest argument I heard from them so far publicly is that they don't know how the streets of New York would impact an electric bus. But how does that go? How are the streets going to negatively impact?
They say they have
bus?
a whole fleet,
All
so
right,
they
well,
have to think
repair
about
our
these
roads,
things.
right.
Yeah, those potholes are a problem.
Fix
People
the
are actually
roads.
starting to plant flowers in the potholes.
Right.
Aside from the electric buses, what are some of the other proposals that MTA has for, getting this massive amount of people to and from the city?
Yeah, so those plans haven't been formulated yet. I believe that we're going to have talks and conversations over the next month with the MTA to kind of figure out what the preliminary plans are. Until then, I won't have any more information. But again, this is going to be a time where we're going to see more people signing on to Uber or Lyft, using more vehicles, creating, again, more carbon emissions in our streets. And the MTA, again, has to double down on the commitment to do right by the environment and by our constituency and get these electric buses on our streets as soon as possible. This is the prime opportunity. Yeah. If you're going to launch a pilot, 5 buses, 10 buses ain't going to do the trick. Let's make sure we have 100, 200 buses.
200 buses, that's what's going to take?
not?
All right.
All right.
So let's pivot a little bit and talk about the, no, not them yet. We'll say that. Let's talk about food insecurity in the New York context. Now, you were here a little while ago talking about school food and making sure that every kid has something to eat, but now you're expanding that reach and really connecting the environment to the need that we have here in New York.
Technology as well.
To tech, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I found a renewed commitment to figuring out ways to deal with with our global impact and with the continuing release of toxic air and finding out ways on how we can resist national policy here locally, right? And while the food portal is a great way in dealing with that, but it also deals with hunger, right? And we can all relate to knowing that we've seen the food pantry lines on our blocks or on our streets in our neighborhoods, and there's a real need to get food to these New Yorkers. And I'm thinking about creating like a Craigslist of food access, right? So if you have a supermarket who's doing away with their edible food that we as consumers don't want to buy because it's not as cute, right? There's a little blemished. The supermarket will be able to post this stuff online, and the local food pantry will be able to go onto that website and figure out where that food is and pick it up on that same day. Also be able to replenish their supply without using any more tax dollars or depending on the city to give them the funding they need to buy the food, and also get, I think, even better quality food.
Better quality fat, yeah.
Well, there's
absolutely.
by some estimates, 1.4 million New Yorkers who are food insecure at the moment, and knowing that the people who are standing in the way of them in hunger need mostly fresh produce and like meat and things that aren't just canned.
Right.
And these people are throwing away tons of it, wind up in landfills.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, supermarkets.
It's also location too. It's those places that are still food deserts. So it's a matter of also taking food into, moving maybe from neighborhood to neighborhood as well.
Exactly. I mean, again, this is an easy way to get local organizations, local businesses interacting with each other to deal with the issue. And like you said earlier, that number is actually 16% of New Yorkers are food insecure. So we have 16% of our population, of our neighbors, going to bed hungry. And this is one way to close that gap and making sure that everyone has access to food. And again, the quality will be better. Supermarkets probably dumping meats that are going to go bad in a day or two. You'll get that directly to the hands of New Yorkers.
They said 40% of food that Americans eat goes to waste.
I'm going to come out right now as a dumpster diver. I've been several times myself on the streets of Brooklyn, outside of places where most of us wouldn't afford to get the stuff that they're throwing away. And I've taken and consumed it. I'm still here, pretty good. But this is a real thing. And for people who aren't inclined to go out on the sidewalk, this could solve that problem.
This could solve that problem. You know, again, we want to make sure that those hungry New Yorkers are not giving food that are not of the best quality. This will increase that quality. This will increase access. And again, this will impact the environment in many ways. You know, again, 40% of our food ends up in our landfills. And that food, when it deteriorates and rots in our landfills, actually emits greenhouse gases that are worse than CO2.
So you introduced this a few months ago. When is it going to be up for a vote for the full city council to finally do something about it?
Yeah, so we had the first public hearing a few weeks ago. It went very well, went very positive. There's some things that I believe the agencies want to tweak, but hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have something going live so that the organizations can have access to it.
Phenomenal.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Finish.
Yes. I wanted to ask you about your bill to be more accurate, I guess, in the city's reporting of bed bugs. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I think we're all afraid of bed bugs. I think we've all heard the horror stories, and some of us actually become victims to infestations, and it's a nightmare. Yeah, I think that if you become a victim, you become an expert on the issue, and you know all the precautions and measures you need to take to protect yourself and to be able to deal with the issue. The problem that I've seen happen is that, especially in neighborhoods like in North Brooklyn or in Brooklyn in general, the row homes, right? We don't know who has bed bugs, right? So if your neighbor has bed bug infestation and you're not aware of it, they can crawl through their walls and end up in your apartment.
That's true.
And you have an infestation without you didn't bring this upon yourself, but it came through the walls. What I want to do is require HPD to create a map. So where all the bed bug complaints are happening, New Yorkers are able to go onto this map and see where the infestations are brewing.
Right.
So if you at least know that in your block or your neighborhood,
Information is power.
there's something going on, you're gonna, make sure you do the right thing. Caulk your walls. Make sure you avoid certain dry cleaners or laundromats.
Just take common sense precautions.
Yeah, you make common sense precautions.
Need to know.
Twice bitten, I can tell you. And I did the door knock. I told my neighbors, we got them.
Yeah.
They got us.
Thank you for that.
So,
Thank that makes all the
for
difference.
better or for
Thank you.
ill. And now we have a map. Thank you, Councilmember.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right. Hopefully it'll come online with the support of the New York City Council and Councilmember Rafael Espinal. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Come back soon and keep us updated.
Definitely.